All right, so now we have another edition of the Pocket Change Market Report. The last one for the month of May. Hey, give it up for the month of May. May 28th, 2025 is the date. Let's see, I think the next one, yeah, I think it'll be on Saturday. Well, what's Saturday? Saturday's the last day of the month, so I lied. Yeah, we have one more. Sorry to break it to you guys. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most impactful, most findable pieces that we have all come across going through change, cherry picking out a local show or a shop, things like that. Maybe you're an avid roll hunter and you got lucky and found one of these. Yeah, we talk about it all. It's in the secondary market. It appeals very favorably to the eBay people when it comes to coins like this. Otherwise, may have a little bit of a tougher time trying to sell it to a coin dealer, that may or may not necessarily, specialize in things like mint errors and die varieties. It's kind of like a very specialized group. But that's why we have eBay. eBay's been around for, the last 2.5 decades. Believe it or not. And, it's catered to a lot of collectors that are looking for the obscure. And that's what we have here. One or a couple ground rules, of course. We don't talk about graded coins. The best that we can, by the way. The idea is that you find these, you turn around, take pictures of it, and you list it right on eBay. The cool thing about errors and varieties is they don't have to be in a graded slab to make any sort of impact. It's not like you're going to make more money because it's in a PCGS slab. That's kind of one of the common misconceptions about some of these coins. And the second thing is the images you're going to see here today are 100% original to the seller's listings. So you're going to see the best and the worst that the eBay world has to offer. So it should be a pretty good time. It should be pretty interesting. We got a couple doozies in here. I also wanted to shout out channel sponsor Whatnot, by the way. Yeah, we have a show coming up in less than an hour from when this particular video was made. So 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern is the start time. We have the final, and speaking of where to find like errors and varieties, we have the final installment of the Unsearched Wheat Cent Treasure Hunt. And that's coming up here very shortly. So if you see your way to coming down to check things out, boy, you guys are going to be in for a treat. We've been selling out of these things pretty quickly. And by the way, these are coins that have never been at a coin shop. I bought these directly from a customer whose uncle operated a couple mercantiles nearest by back in the 40s and 50s. So he was a hoarder of coin of all types. And I bought out all of the Lincoln Wheat Cents that you could possibly ask for. And a lot of great stuff comes out of these. So come check things out. Otherwise, we do our normally scheduled Friday shows at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We have the QR code. If you scan that, sign up today. You get $15 off your first item. If you don't like the QR code, it's okay. We got the links down below in the description box and pinned to the comments section of this video. Some people find it just easier to use those, but in any event, save $15 off your first item can be easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. We're going to kick things off with two simply amazing pieces of paper here. 1995 $5 bill, and boy, oh boy, look at the overprint on this thing. This is what they call a misaligned overprint. And, the sheet was, off kilter. It was probably hanging out of the side of the stack. And when it came time to printing the serial numbers and the seals and all that, it was way off. So obviously this affects more than just this one singular note on the subject sheet. It affected a number of notes. Now the question is, how many of these were discovered through the quality control process? These are notes typically, and if you want a general idea, these are the type of notes that the BEP employees would pull out and replace with star notes. And that's why star notes, were produced and made. Unfortunately, star notes are no longer made as of today, just due to a new print process that the BEP has utilized with these new machines. So that would make things like this pretty uncommon, especially on newer notes. This particular one is quite nice looking. You know, it has seen some circulation wear, so you can imagine this thing has passed through a few hands, and the people that just weren't paying attention, well, you know, they won't be cashing in on this. A very valuable paper money error type. This one, by the way, is selling for $499 as it sits. And again, solving that misconception, you gotta grade everything like this? Heck no. They sell for the full commandment of the market, and you know, it can be easier. Yeah, most people that collect these anyways, they know what they're looking for, and they know how to weed out some of the more unscrupulous examples that have been counterfeited. Next one that we have here, 1969 dollar bill, kind of an old one here. This one is actually really cool, you know? I mean, if you did not turn this note over, you wouldn't know any better, right? And what are we talking about? By the way, look at the circulation wear. It's far from perfect, but it's hard to believe that this crazy looking ink smear, it looks like rain coming off of like window glass, you know? Like if you're in a restaurant, you look outside and you see just water sheeting off the glass of that restaurant storefront. Man, this thing is really cool. So you can see all of that green ink smear just coming down in waves on this note, and probably most of the sheet. Just do some, you know, printing press snafu, I would imagine. So this one here is selling for $231. If you would ask me, hey, ink smears are quite dramatic. Do they typically sell for this kind of money? No. This particular one is wild. Like, there's a lot of ink smear on there. But I've also seen lesser ink smears, like maybe with a couple streaks, sell for as low as like $50. You know, so again, really depends on how dramatic things look. And again, this one is not graded. So keeping to have a graded holder might actually work out better for the people that do collect it. They're still going to pay you the full amount of money for it in today's market. Next one that we have here, it's been quite some time since we've covered this particular coin. 1857 Flying Eagle cent. As you guys know, the Flying Eagle series of coins is, you know, relegated to just a couple years. It was not a great design, but call it for what it is. It was mostly a place marker to help separate the end of the larger, like braided hair cents, to what, you know, we know it today as the Lincoln cents, you know, because we had the Flying Eagles, and then the Indian head cents enjoyed a pretty nice stint from 1859 all the way up to 1909. So that lived on for a good deal of time. These particular coins, however, surprisingly, they could look really beat up, but still pack a secondary market punch. And if you find with any sort of variety or error on them, that just kind of amplifies the desirability, the sale price. Now, this one is quite a bit beat up. You can see just the rims on both sides here are pretty well banged up. However, if you want something pretty gosh darn cool, this one is actually a well-known die clash. These were clashed with a 50-cent Seated Liberty $half. If you look over here over the word America, you can see that marquee clashing. Also right here at the crux of these two wings, you can see some clashing there as well. Those are two of the stronger parts of the coin that receives a lot of the die clashing. So this one, very well known. It is a cherry picker's guide variety as well. It's also referred to as the Snow 9 variety. This one ended up selling for $38.95. Much higher graded specimens will shoot up pretty quickly into the many hundreds of dollars. Next one that we have here, pretty neat, man. It is simplistic and kind of innocent as this 1958D Lincoln Weed cent is. All it takes is one little thing to make it, you know, just that more dramatic and interesting. This one has a retained lamination piece right on the reverse. You can see it under the word America. So this coin has lived on for many decades, you know, and then someone did, you know, discover it, held on to it, and then it came time to sell it. And I'd say that they did okay on it. This is one of the more dramatic photo images of it with the piece of paper that just being slipped under that lamination piece right there for dramatic effect. I like when people do this with their listings. So this one right here is selling for $18. It was a buy it now. If you would ask me, hey, Sean, could it have sold for more? Yeah, actually, I've seen pieces like this sell for more money, considering that it's in much nicer shape compared to some of the other ones I've seen. It's not out of the realm of the possibility that this one was underpriced by about half. This one I could see selling for $30 to $40. If relisted, I would certainly see that, and that's all due to just the nice photography and the way things are set up here. All right, so one of our less impressive images this week comes in the way of this 2011 Lincoln Shield set. It was okay. It was worth a try. Yeah, the close-ups actually were okay, but you have to scale them down a little bit because they are quite pixelated. But if you look at the date, you notice how stretched out it is? That's because this is a doubled die. This is actually WDDO number 2. It's a Wexler die variety. It's actually quite dramatic. One of the more dramatic doubled dies of the Shield Scent series, that goes from 2010 all the way up to right now, 2025. So believe it or not, we've seen this Shield design for 15 years already, and, let's say keep going on with that until, the Mint decides that they're going to stop production, which I'm hearing just through the grapevine. 2026 is going to be that last year, as the Mint have put in their final order with their vendor for the Lincoln Scent blank planchets. So that's kind of a big deal. And usually when they order, they order enough to last them about 2 years. But from all the rumors I've heard coming from the Fed Reserve and things like that 2027 is going to be the first year with no Lincoln Scents. So that's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. So this one right here, I've found a few of these being in the West Coast. I've come across probably 3 or 4 of the WDDO number 2s. They are out there. If you're on the East Coast, this is an even easier find if you're looking for them. This one's selling for $15.50 here on eBay within the last day or two. Pretty cool one here. Of course, we've seen this type before. This is a Roosevelt dime. It's actually dated 1966, and you can kind of make it out there. A little bit of a, halo-ish kind of look to it. And the reason why that we could read things like the Liberty and the date, and, we know that's Roosevelt right on there, is that this is struck through a very late stage cap die. All right, so that cap die that's stuck to the die is razor thin at this point. So you get some of the punch through of their original design of the die transferring onto the coin that's being struck. But yeah, I mean, as you guys know, cap die strikes are very consistent today. Same with cut die breaks. This one ended up selling for $50.44 with 5 bids. I mean, that's a pretty good amount of money. Like I've said before in other videos, we've seen these generally go for like $30 to $40 pretty regularly. All right, so this one here doing a little bit better, only because it's a very attractive looking piece. It's been a while since we talked about one of these, but hey, I'm up to the challenge again. It's a 2019 P Lowell National Park quarter. It's actually in also pretty decent shape. You see what I see? Our good old boy Washington over here is wearing an earring. That's actually something that was discovered way back in the day. People called it a die chip. There's other theories as to what this is. But currently we call it just the earring. Some people will just say die chip on ear. Here's a really, really close-up view of that anomaly right on the ear. And it can only be found on the Lowell National Park Philly quarters. Nothing else. These haven't been found on any other coin so far. So we haven't seen one of these in a while. There were actually 2 examples that sold here in the last 24 hours. This particular one selling for $44.51. The second example sold a little bit earlier for $75. So I checked out. I believe they have bought out whatever was available in the marketplace. So these are, I guess, officially sold out till someone else plops another one on there. But they didn't used to sell for this kind of money. You know, they dropped down to about $10 at one point. I would say probably recently, like 3, 4 years ago, and that's only because there were more of these out there. But boy, today there's not nearly as many of these as there once was. I guess the further that we distance ourselves away from the release of any one coin, the likelihood that we'll find a specific type or variety, that those odds thin pretty quickly there. Next one here, man, this is such a pretty piece, and this one sold by one of the regular variety enthusiasts right on eBay. 1972 Lincoln Memorial Cent with the aforementioned doubled die obverse number 8 or the FS108. It's a Cherry Picker's Guide Queen. A really pretty looking piece, one of the nice strong doubled dies, and the coin looks to be in really nice shape. Although you guys know my stance on taking pictures in the 2x2s, it really does kind of like skew the perception of what the coin actually looks like in hand. But in any event, this one, I mean, check out some of these close-ups of the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," Liberty. You can see the doubling as clear as you can on some of the other strong 1972 doubled dies. This is a beautiful one here. So this one's selling for $133.90. Great deal. Full red examples of just about any one of the Cherry Picker's Guide 72 Philly doubled dies. They command quite a big amount of money, and even graded examples go up higher than that. This might be the only exception where if the coin was clean enough and you could confidently say that maybe it would grade perhaps a 66 red, that would be like the only exception why I would even send this to a grading company. Outside of that, they sell very strong the way they are. Like this one here had a few spots on it. I'd probably keep this one away from any grading consideration, but a very strong sell nonetheless. We also have one of these that, pops up on occasion. Probably see them once every week or so. This is the 2017 A $2 Fed Reserve Note Star. And most importantly, this particular one has the over-inked filled star, which usually is on the top right serial number string on these. So, if we went back to the previous image, the bottom left star, normally there's a white dot in the star as part of the design. So when it's filled in, it looks natural, but it's not. That's not what the design is supposed to look like. But in any case, these are out there. Grading companies like PMG and PCGS Banknote will denote an over-inked star if you pay for the error service. Again, not something that's totally necessary because we know what it is, but, prices on these continue to keep just appreciating. $54.03 on this sale. And, there was a point where you could have got these for around $30. I would say about a year ago, and the prices and inventory is dwindling. The supply is I'm not going to say non-existent, but it's not as readily available as it once was, but the prices, they continue to appreciate. There's a little look at the back. I would say it's uncirculated, unless you guys see any sort of folds or anything that, that I'm personally missing, but yeah, it looks like they picked this one up for the bank. Did a fresh bank acquisition that they had turned around and, took pictures of and sold it pretty easily. I believe it was a buy now hit too. We've seen these before, again, from the same seller. This is a 1970s Lincoln Memorial Cent that was struck on a split planchet. So it probably weighs about half of a standard Lincoln Cent planchet. Which, a regular planchet is 3.1 grams. This one is probably about half that or just slightly above. But yeah, you can see the side where it's split, which is on the reverse. You have those striations, it looks like a rock face. It's kind of cool. But yeah, this planchet is very thin. And since the mid presses are calibrated to whatever the thickness of a standard planchet is, if it's thinner, it's not going to completely strike up all of the devices on there. So again, these are very popular, about as consistent as Cuds and Cap Die Strikes. $50.75 was the final number on this one. So another great sale here. If you caught this one and you bought it, congratulations. This is actually a pretty good hit here. It's a lot of $4 bills with all misaligned overprint. Every single one of them has overprint that's misaligned in some aspect. I would say, they're all pretty interesting. The serial number on the bottom left is very interesting because it ends in 4 zeros. The notes that typically end in 4 zeros or 4 nines are generally pulled out of pack out, which means they're not supposed to even exist. So yeah, that one's kind of interesting. Now I say supposed to, it's a kind of like a loose policy I'm sure that they have, because I've seen many of them over the years. But anyways, this is a pretty cool 4-note set. There's a little bit of a close-up of the most misaligned parts with the seals all kind of like off-center compared to where the word 1 is. And you can see the serial numbers are all overlapping, other printed items on there. So pretty cool. For the 4 notes total, $194.30, which brings the per piece total to under $49 a piece. And you can turn around and plop these back onto eBay for $99.99. Buy it now. Because we know misaligned overprints sell really good. I would say probably if I had to guess, maybe the bottom right note might sell for about $125. That one would have a good shot. The one that ends with 4 zeros, meh. It's not super misaligned, and the jury's still out on the acceptability of, quad zeros or quad nines. So, yeah, I don't know. The top right note looks pretty good, but it's pretty well worn. That one you could probably do about $125 as well, just seeing how dramatic it is. I mean, 43S Steely. It's not the prettiest. I can tell you that. This thing's oxidized and rusted like it was sitting on a battleship during World War II. And that ship sunk into the salty waters of the Atlantic or Pacific, whatever. So this one right here is struck off center, as you can see. It's not the prettiest one I've seen for sure, but still, $96.34 was a pretty respectable sale on this one, even though it probably doesn't have too much longer to go before it just, crumbles into bits. Coins and cards added again. We have an 1871 Indian Ed cent. This is just a really gorgeous key day coin here. It doesn't have the shallow end on the reverse, so that kind of ends the conversation of rarity. Coins and cards mentioned that this one was a repunched date. However, I really don't see it on this one. They said the 1 and the 8 are repunched, but I don't know. I don't see it on this. Otherwise, it's a gorgeous coin. XF+++ all the way home on this. $504 was the sale price with 51 bits, and that is about what the market commands for a really pretty 1871. They are very expensive. 1871, 72, and if you had one with a shallow end, that just pretty much 2x's the value on these. Again, that's a pretty big deal. We also had this one here, also from Coins and Cards, 1864, with the L on ribbon Indian Ed cent. This one coming in about VF30, I think, on this one. Looks pretty decent as well. It does have more contact marks and a little bit of greasy corrosion on the reverse. Again, Coins and Cards believe that this is a repunch date. It might be. I'm really not seeing it. Even though 1864 with the L on ribbon has a number of RPDs to go along with it that you can find, I have owned pretty much all of them. So, and I've come to find out and determine that there are some that is going to be quite strong, but none of them are weak enough where it makes you think, and that's why I believe this one is not a repunch date. $135.50 with 26 bids. Good looking coin. Another crazy dramatic overprint, a little bit newer note, 2003A, and it looks to be uncirculated. The overprint misaligned to the left, as you can see, and the reverse showing just a problem-free beauty right out of the strap. $171.99 with 28 bids to go along with that sale. 1970, a date I'm going to say that we don't see too much of for off-center strikes. Usually with a Denver or a San Francisco mint mark, we do come across those. But however, something like this, not really that much. Off-center by a little bit, 10%, I would say. $41 was the completed sale for this example. And strange one here. Not so much strange, but I have had a lot of people ask me, hey, what do you call this? So we did come across one. Unfortunately, there's not a huge secondary market kind of collector base for these. And it just so happens to be on a bicentennial. So if a bicentennial doesn't sell nearly as much with this anomaly, then you can make the argument that all the other dates of coins probably won't do nearly as well. And this can be seen as quite minor in the error world, and normally it is. This is a what they call a collar clash. So that's where the rim gutter of the die makes contact with the edge, the leading edge of the collar. All right. So there could be just a slight little misalignment there of both those parts. Just, it would make contact when, one of the parts is loose enough. So when that happens, obviously you're going to have whatever impression that is on the die, rim gutter area, that is going to translate onto subsequent strikes. It'll look like this. It'll look like little teeth is essentially what it is. Unfortunately, again, it doesn't bear a whole lot of great market kind of fruit here. This one ended up at $8.99. And again, it's on a bicentennial quarter. You can't figure out the most perfect coin to kind of test out a really tough kind of mint error on one of the most popular coins. Because I would say that generally any mint error on a bicentennial quarter will add values in spades on these. And if it's nothing too dramatic, it's not going to add much at all. Case in point here. No dated Indian head cent, off center by a ton. Was that 35% on this one? It looks cleaned. It's got a lot of things telling me that this one has been cleaned. It looks like it had a lot of dirt or something on there. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes sometimes with these. Nice off-center strike on this one. $205.19 was the sale price. With a full readable date and it being off-center by 30%, you can see these things shooting up close to $1,000. And problem-free, by the way. We also had this 1979P, Susan B. One of the tougher coins to find a mint error on, yet we have two of them here to kind of end off the pocket change market report on. This one right here, a very nice, clean, high-end example. I would say off-center by a little bit. You can even say it's even a broad strike. It's that close. This one selling for $144.96. Again, just the price goes along with how tough finding something like this is. Here's another coin that was struck through a very late stage capped die. Man, very mushy. That thing was razor thin, paper-like. You can see a date, 1991P on this one. The motto, Liberty, on the whole 9 yards. This one was an eternal miss. Someone got a great deal on this one at $15.01 with 5 bids. So, yeah, I mean, that's very unfortunate. There are deals to be had on things like this, and it's, it is what it is. We hit it out of the park in some instances, and in others, we've given a good deal to a collector. Here's our other Susan B. This time is 79S with a rim clip as evidence right there above RTY and Liberty. Pretty easy to see here on this one. $39.95 was the final sale. And the last item for the PCMR, I'm willing to bet some of you probably don't know what this is. It's a 1972D Roosevelt dime, but what are those parallel line markings on the front of the coin. You can actually see it translated in some way on the reverse. And I'm afraid to say this is not a mint error in the sense of it, having something to do with actual strike of the coin, but this was in a mint set. So this is what they call crimper damage. The coin was outside of its standard area in the mint set blister, and the teeth of the crimper went down hard and heavy on this thing, and that's what we have here. So even though it happened at the mint, it's not a mint error, because the mint error is anything that happens during the process of when the coin was struck, not further processes down the line where it's like packed out in a mint set. They would call this probably, now, and this is probably where this one would be more valuable if it was still in the original mint set, but they would call it just a packaging error. All right, and people do collect those, and they'll pay up for them. This one, for example, ended up selling for $39.04 with 4 bids. So, all was not lost. This one ended up selling for a lot more than I personally believe than what it's worth. But again, that what I have to say sometimes really doesn't matter. People will pay whatever the value they see in that item. And this is one of those classic cases of that. All right, that's it. Ladies and gents, keep in mind, the information you saw in this video today is highly for entertainment purposes only, not financial advice, okay? And that's going to go ahead and wrap things up for this one. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. It was a great pleasure, again, to bring this to you here on a Wednesday. We do have one more for the month coming up on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. I hope to see you guys there. In the meantime, keep on collecting, keep on hunting. Let's make sure this hobby keeps on progressing forward. I will see you guys later. Have a good time, and keep collecting.